Hello, and welcome to this special panel discussion hosted by Women as One and supported by Amgen in recognition of National Cholesterol Education Month. I'm Dr. Katie Benziger, a preventative cardiologist and passionate advocate for equitable and collaborative cardiovascular care. Today's conversation is inspired by the powerful documentary, The Making of a Heart Attack, which explores several individuals' personal experience with heart disease, revealing the warning signs that were missed, the opportunities that we have to prevent future events through proactive and coordinated care. At the center of the story is Tara Robinson, whose lived experience with multiple heart attacks reminds us that symptoms aren't always textbook and care isn't always well coordinated. We are honored to have Tara with us today to share not just her story, but her perspective on what clinicians really can do better. Also joining us today is Dr. Sarah Collins, a cardiologist featured in the documentary who brings deep expertise on LDL cholesterol and cardiometabolic risk, and how we can help prevent heart events and put a stop to the process that causes it. This panel will explore real and too often missed signals of cardiovascular risk, the communication gaps between specialists and patients, and how tools like the documentary itself can be used to empower and educate our patients. We'll also spotlight practical strategies for improving coordinated care and engaging patients more meaningfully on their healthcare journey. Whether you're a cardiologist, primary care provider, or part of a multidisciplinary team, we hope that this discussion leaves you informed, moved, and ready to act. Let's begin. Tara and Dr. Collins, why do you think a documentary like The Making of a Heart Attack is important right now?
Dr. Collins, you want me to go first? Okay. Um, I think it I think a documentary like Making of a Heart Attack is important because the more that we can spread awareness or the more we make it seem more human and transparent in real life, situations, I think that's how we reach across communities, especially communities like mine where um I was thinking about the entire time doing that documentary, like growing up, the images I saw versus now. Oh, how lucky we are to see individuals from across the spectrum um, suffer and hear our stories from a heart attack so that we can reach other races of people to let them know that this can happen to you at any age and at any time.
One of the things that did strike me was how there was wide variety of ages represented in that documentary. Dr. Collins, what do you think about the making of that documentary in a time like now?
Yeah, I think that the film was powerful for us as clinicians because we have these conversations a lot in vacuum. So we have them like at conferences with our colleagues, or we have them with our patients. But as clinicians, we don't often get to observe our patients and their stories, especially together. There was a real synergy and energy watching um, you, Tara, and the rest of the team telling your stories. There was so much commonality. Just everyone was so different demographically and geographically, but there was a lot of commonality that we don't get to observe as folks who take care of people for a living. And I mean, I think the common thread was how unexpected it was for everybody, and that's really relatable. So I think that besides the fact that it's a short, relatable film, that's it's sort of easy to digest and I think very well done. That part was the most powerful to me as a clinician.
Dr. Collins, what did you hope to convey by participating in the film and kind of being that uh, extra perspective?
I think the most important aspect of what we do is taking the ever-changing guidelines, the ever-changing knowledge base that we are um, that we are that we hear, that we participate in, that we study, and translating that to a language that is relatable to our patients. We don't want to talk at our patients, right? We want to take the knowledge that we are bound to understand and is really moving and changing very quickly year to year and meet our patients where they are. So I think this documentary gives us small bullets easy to digest bullets. For us as clinicians, we got a lot of stuff in our head we need to remember. And it allows us to observe some really impactful stories and create language to marry the two. Like that, it's just the most important aspect of what we do is meeting our patients where they are and listening to them. And that's really what this felt like to me as a clinician. It felt like listening. So I hope that the film empowers clinicians to create a language and a conversation that they can tailor to each one of their patient conversations.
I agree. I think stories are so impactful. Tara, how did it feel to see your experience reflected in this kind of national storytelling?
I think it was a dream come true. When I started out on this journey, all I wanted to do was put people on alert that this could happen to them. And you could think you're perfectly healthy. You could be going to the doctor like you're supposed to. You can have insurance. You can be doing all the right things, and everything can still go very wrong quickly. So this was a dream come true to put more people on alert that this can happen to you. That's why I started this journey, and this helps more in ways I can't even imagine, get the story out there and let people know that this can't happen to you.
Dr. Collins, from a clinical standpoint, there's a lot of talk about low density lipoprotein cholesterol, also known as LDL-C in the movie, and it's so often undertreated. What do clinicians need to understand about its role in heart disease?
I think we need to remind ourselves of the shift from total cholesterol to LDL. It is, and also understand that the targets and the goals are different based on the patient's experience and their history, and that we have to be aggressive in empowering them to know those numbers. They've got to know those numbers. That's by far it's even more important than us knowing the numbers. But they need to know their LDL-C, right? They need to know what number, why their goal is what it is, why it may be different than their daughter, than their aunt. It may be different than what they expected it to be. But I think, understanding the varied risk and the varied levels of LDL-C, the targets is I think the most important thing to take away.
Tara, you talk about LDL-C. When did you first learn that you had high cholesterol and what your LDL-C level was? And do you think you could have changed your experience if you had known, earlier about that?
Well, in my situation, it's a little bit different. I did not have high cholesterol then. And so in the work that we do at Black Heart Association, we run into a lot of people that have high cholesterol, but also not just that, like Dr. Collins just mentioned, even if they know about cholesterol, they just know their total number. They don't understand the complete breakdown, like she was saying. But for me, my cholesterol didn't become an issue until later in my journey. As a 52-year-old woman, I have menopause now, and now my cholesterol is creeping up. So even though they had me on a statin as a preventative, I wasn't, Dr. Collins, don't frown. I wasn't necessarily adherent to what my doctor was saying at the time. And so I was very adamant that I didn't need this as a prevention. But now, as a woman going through menopause, I definitely, with my heart condition, need this as a preventative for me. And so I think, like Dr. Collins said, that everyone is different. And so me learning, when I just learned that my LDL-C, especially doing this work, I freaked out. I was like, oh, no, I'm not having this. It's not happening. But thank God I know enough, and me and my doctor have a great relationship around medication and around, my condition. So, but to hear that I have a number that's elevated freaked me out. And I know that I have to, because, I just cannot have 3 heart attacks again. So I'm definitely on guard as it relates to my heart health. So learning that kind of was like, whoa, so you just hope to spring into action.
What's one change that you would like to see in clinical practice when it comes to helping prevent heart attacks? Maybe Tara, we'll start with you.
Ooh, that's a little question. When it comes to preventing heart attacks, it's a lot of things I would like to see happen in clinical practice. I think one of them, like Dr. Collins alluded to earlier, listening to patients, and because we come in and we're, you know, we don't know, we just know something's wrong, right? Or something's different, or something strange is going on with our bodies, and we want to have a conversation about it. And so I presented at the doctor before my heart attacks. I went, you know, every year like I do, and just slow down. I would like clinicians to slow down, listen, and just remember this is a human, you know, and I know not all doctors don't think people, you know, we know we're humans, but just think of this as a family member sitting in front of you, somebody very important that you love and that you care about, because, you know, that's what it's about at the end of the day. I would also like to see referrals done to cardiovascular doctors. That's my biggest pet peeve since going through my journey. Like, what would have happened if my brother-in-law was referred to a cardiovascular doctor after being put on 3 different types of blood pressure medicine? Or, you know, what would happen in the community if the person that had total cholesterol, who's been battling it for years, and they never make it to the next step to get, you know, to a specialist until an incident happens. So for me, it's definitely making sure that you understand what you're facing, but getting that information from your doctor versus hearing it everywhere else. And so I'm hoping people have better relationships with their doctor and get the referrals that they need to their specialists.
That's excellent advice. Dr. Collins, what would you like to see change in clinical practice?
I mean, in general, I think we've lost the empathy in clinical practice to a large extent because we are so saddled with all of the burden of the way we practice medicine. It's not what any of us expected when we got into this business, to be quite honest. And so, yes, the emphasis on listening is it's at the center of everything. I've said it 1,000 times today, and I will continue to. I wish we had the opportunity to listen and not chart. I wish we had the time and the patience to listen, because we are so much more impactful when we create a plan of care that's centered around the patient's needs and story.
Mhm.
You know, compliance is a big piece of this. And you cannot have a compliant patient if you don't know why they are non-compliant. Are they non-compliant because they can't afford the medication is too complicated, the prescription did not make it to the pharmacy, even though you thought it did because it had to go through a prior authorization process that you were completely not a part of? You know, are the pills getting mixed up because they don't have I mean, there's 1,000 reasons. All of those reasons are around listening. Or do they have complaints? Are they having side effects? Some of those side effects are real side effects that we need to be more cognizant of. Some of them are somatic, which are just as impactful. If that patient is on a blood pressure medication and they are convinced that there is a side effect associated with that medication, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. Real, I mean, a true side effect. It's happening to them. So, you know, the ability to listen and take that, take all of that in without judgment. I wish we all had more time to do it, but I think that's at the center of everything that we do. I don't know how to fix that apart from you know, the how we've all mastered charting and looking at the patient at the exact same time and listening. So we're doing actually 3 things at once in order to actually finish the day. But yeah, I think that's if there was one thing I could change, that would be it.
I agree. I think that patient provider partnership and that listening and keeping the patient at the center is so important. And hopefully, you know, there's some technology that might be helping us with being able to get back to that. I want to hear from both of you on where do you guys think the gaps are in this coordinated care? You know, Terry, you talked a little bit about the lack of referrals. So talk about the gaps in coordinated care for patients with, you know, these cardiometabolic risk factors, and how do you see that playing out in real life?
It's it's tough because you have on one side people that it's like threefold. You have a group of people that have insurance, you have good insurance, and then you have people that have okay insurance, and you have this group of people that don't have any insurance. And so it's like trying to connect the dots between all of these different entities, and then also while trying to figure out what social determinants of health is going on, which are possibly could be going on. And so I think for us on the patient side, that's why a lot of us don't even bother to engage, because it's all these pieces of the puzzle that's not being put together properly. And so when we start, I was telling the doctor the other day that it starts in your mind first about like, am I going to the doctor or not? Then we get to the doctor and we run into issues of referrals, prior authorization, trying to get our medicine, or that doctor's not listening to us, or, are I'm facing bias or racism in care. So I think it's a loaded question that I'm not sure if we have time to discuss today, but I really think that what needs to happen is this slower paced environment where we can make sure that patients are being connected to the resources that they need once they do engage with the system. And I went over to the Children's Hospital. I don't know if anybody has ever been there, but when you go over there, it's just this peaceful environment, this feeling that you're a kid and people care. I would like to see that when we engage the hospital system. Like, when did we become so grown, such big adults that we just don't provide these environments of safety, of care for our patients? I was like, why couldn't the Children's Hospital be like the adult hospital be like more like the Children's Hospital? And so I think that would give adults this safety net to feel like the doctors in this hospital care for me, or the doctors in this environment care for me. So I would like to see this connection, like from if we could have this magical world where it's one system where patients can look at everything, like it could tell them and tell their doctors and have a community of conversation in this one environment where they see Dr. Collins, but they can also see the cardiovascular doctor while they're next to Dr. Collins, or, the nephrologist while the next person they need to see is readily available. So I'd like to see all these connections of the dots happen more smoothly for us.
I completely agree. I think a lot of times we say we're very siloed in our different clinics, and there isn't as much overlap and interaction. And I think even, like to bring up about the Children's Hospital is always so colorful, and there's stars, and it's a much more welcoming environment. I think we could do more to try to welcome patients in and seek care. Dr. Collins, what do you think are some of the gaps in coordinated
Yeah, I
care?
can't say anything that you guys haven't already said. We all know we're operating in silos. We all are on different electronic health records. The patients log into 5 or 6 patient portals. And they think we are all in one record, which is also tricky for me. I'm on Epic from the hospital, but not in our practice. But so, half the time I'm just spending trying to get information from other people. So I try to empower the patient and say, look, you need to be your own electronic health record. Because you're the only one who's seeing everybody. I wish I had everybody on speed dial. And to be honest, I work in a practice that offers me that opportunity. So I only engage with providers as much as I can who know how closely I keep my patients and pick the phone up. Pick the phone up. But, us all working on one record, understanding there's a lot of overlap between general medicine, nephrology, and cardiology, a lot. The medications that we're treating heart failure with, or LDL-C with, or they're all overlapping. So us being able to communicate, with whatever means we have, sharing records. I just literally write everything down and hand it to the patient and say, I'm going to send your doctor a letter, but I'm a specialist, so I don't always get those letters back, right? The primary care team gets the letters, but all the other specialists don't always get one another's records. So I try to hand everything to the patient. And then, every one of my patients knows their goal LDL-C number. There's no question about that. Just like their goal blood pressures, they've got to know those numbers cold. So yeah, I think the gaps are in communication and a disparate record system.
I think I completely agree with you. maybe give me an example of where you've seen cardiologists and primary care providers effectively collaborating and bridging that gap.
I think it's when we have made inroads and we have open lines of communication. So when I can text somebody and I can say, look, this patient fell off my schedule today, and I'm worried about her. Blood pressure was 180 when I saw her last time. Have you talked to her? Have you seen her? You know, a little stalking. Never hurt anybody. But I think direct lines of communication, a quick text message, is welcomed, right? A quick text message or a phone call. And I think, but above and beyond what we do as providers, when my patients become brilliant patients around their disease state, then everybody wins. Then if let's say they're traveling to North Carolina for a family reunion and they have an event, if they know their patients, they know their medication's cold, they know I saw Dr. Collins, you know, last month, and she changed this medication to this because of this reason. If they have all that information in their brain, which is absolutely possible for the patient, and you know, they may need an advocate, they may need a family member or a friend to take the journey with them. But if that team knows everything, then we all win. Because ultimately, they're the only ones who have every single touch point with the healthcare system.
Exactly. Tara, listening to Dr. Collins and reflecting on your experience before your event and after kind of navigating these systems, primary care, cardiology, what do you wish would have been different?
I think for me, what I wish would have been different before was when I went in with my symptoms, it would have been a tie between my symptoms, because she was like, well, you're just stressed out. Or you might be just stressed out. I'm sorry. She said, you might be just stressed out. And I agree with her wholeheartedly because I could be right. And I was probably most likely. I always have been actually. Anyway, I think just connecting, making sure patients understand that even though it's not a term like diabetes or a situation like diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever the situation might be, making sure they understand the connection between that and bad cholesterol and heart disease. You know, making sure that connection is there. Stress can impact your heart, or this could possibly be your heart, or this could possibly be this based on that. So just because that would have been on my mind when I left there. And I felt like that was a missed opportunity for her to tell me. And I know we get the blame a lot as the patients, like, well, you should know the signs and symptoms. I'm not thinking it's happening to me. So just a friendly reminder would have been great that it could happen to me. So I think that was before my heart attacks. After my heart attacks, I used the cardiovascular doctor as my primary care for years. And I still love my cardiovascular doctor very much. And so he got on to me about not having a primary care doctor. And so I mentioned to him a doctor I had been hearing about, and he knew about my doctor and had a great relationship about the doctor I was telling him about. So I worked backwards. Usually people meet their cardiovascular doctor through their primary care. Because I trusted him the most, I took that name to him and asked him, and he approved. And so that's how he picked up the phone, like Dr. Collins said, and he called him and let him know that he would be sending his most important patient over to him. And even that call made me feel good because I know he sees thousands of patients, but he did use those, or I'm sending my most important patient over to you. And so I've been in good hands with my primary care doctor. So I went the backwards way. Ran into a cardiovascular doctor this way, and this is who I trusted in the healthcare system. And so mine has been pretty smooth. But when at Black Heart, when we help patients find doctors, that's when we get into the woods a little bit, because they're looking for doctors they can relate to, that they feel comfortable with, and that, you know, and trying to get from primary to specialist is hard. And telling patients like, hey, if you've had high blood pressure for an extended amount of time, please try to see a specialist at least once somewhere in that journey, you know. So Doctors aren't doing that. They're not sending, and I know I said this earlier, but we have to make sure that that's a smooth transition from the primary care to a cardiologist, at least giving patient that opportunity to talk to a specialist about their numbers. We have to somehow smooth that out. I'm actually looking at policy to say, I don't, I would love to just talk to doctors and say, can we just do this? Making sure they get, after having blood pressure, cholesterol issues for years. I have a patient that called me the other day that she had a tear in her valve, but all these years she had something else. So just to say that she had been going to her doctor all that time and was never referred for this irregular heartbeat. So I'm just saying we have to do better there. It was smooth for me, but it's not smooth for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you talk a lot about the importance of coordinating of care, the importance of being listened to. Tara, what would you say, clinicians who think that they're doing a good job, but maybe missing some of these signs, not being aggressive, like you said about some of these risk factors, what advice would you give us?
I would tell you all that it's not textbook. Everybody is not textbook. Everybody presents differently. We know this, especially as women, but make that same assumption with men too, that everybody's body is different. My body doesn't operate like yours. It doesn't operate like the doctor in front of me. I'm different. You're different. Treat me though as you would treat yourself. Well, some of y'all don't treat yourselves good, but as someone you love very, very much, treat me like that person. And so I think that's what I would say to you all, that although you might be thinking you're doing it right, it's okay to double check in with the patient. What do you think about what I'm telling you? What are your thoughts? Because now they might trigger a thought in your mind that, oh, I wasn't thinking about that. So let me, so it's this relational thing that has to happen.
Dr. Collins, how can providers become more attuned to these lived experiences that we're hearing and the needs of the patients, especially those from underrepresented communities?
Another loaded one. I try to explain to my team that historical discrimination is one thing, but all of the discrimination is still happening currently. So when you meet the patient in the hospital, regardless of their socioeconomic status, they may be discriminated based on literally how they look. Are they wearing hijab? Are they brown? Are they black? Are they a woman? There are 1,000, I can go on and on. All of those things are absolutely informing the way we take care of patients, from the triage nurse to the interventional cardiologist.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things. So when someone looks at you and they are mistrustful, there is a reason for them. Mm-hmm. And it is our job to do our best to turn the lens inward and say, let me make sure I'm not furthering this. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the non-socioeconomic status, but the underinsured, non-insured, or socioeconomically challenged patient has a whole other layer of challenge and receives as much, if far more, discrimination just based on their insurance status and the fact that they may not be able to get to the doctor. They may not be, they might not have actual transportation to the doctor. They might have to take care of their mom. And how do they leave their mom at home and go to the doctor? So all of these things. So reminding ourselves that people may, when you walk in the room and someone's back is up and their arms are folded and they seem resistant, don't take that personally, mm-hmm. Right? Have a disarming conversation that builds trust. And you're going to be far more effective in everything you do if you can just establish basic trust. But that is difficult for clinicians because we are taught to be paternalistic for a reason, right? When I was in the cath lab and I was in an emergent situation and I was treating a STEMI, I needed to be paternalistic. Everyone needed to do exactly what I said. Mm-hmm. In that moment to fix that acute event. Obviously, I listen to my staff. The patients are asleep at that point, so I can't listen to them then. But the paternalistic nature of the way we take care of patients as a whole is not a straight line, right? Yes, we know the guidelines, and when you build trust and you enable a dialogue that is open, then you have a real partnership, because ultimately what you need is a partner.
Mhm.
And when, as a patient, you need a lot of partners. Most patients need a healthcare advocate because it's a lot to navigate by yourself. And then they also need a healthcare partner. So I think just being more like to in tune to the lived experience of our patients, and not taking the attitude personally. The attitude may be unrecognized anxiety. I've got a lot of elderly patients who've been anxious and had gone through trauma and are as tightly wound as you can be. And the way it represents itself is anger. They're just mad. They don't know how to process that anxiety or that trauma, and they're terrified. They're terrified because they're at the cardiologist. What are you going to tell me? Yeah, I might have some tough news for you. So, realizing, hey, this is not you. Sometimes it is you, and you really do need to turn the lens inward and think about why they are behaving that way. But, trying to disarm them and create a partnership is at the forefront of all of this.
I completely agree. I think I've heard, over and over talking about trust, communication, collaboration. As it comes to cholesterol conversations, what are some of the practical steps that clinicians then can make to talk about cholesterol and make it more proactive in this situation where, maybe there's a little bit of a barrier there, or someone's, um, doesn't trust the health system?
I think the first thing is quite basic. Having a recent set of cardiovascular labs with LDL-C at the top, just a recent set of fresh labs, and then creating goals together. What is your target? And then searing that target into their brain. And then it's a journey, right? It's a journey on which medications work, which may not work, which are more impactful, some are, some aren't. But knowing that number is critical, and not the total cholesterol number, because a lot of patients say, oh, my cholesterol is only 202. Well, what's your what's your LDL, right? That's the key. So yeah, I think starting with knowing your numbers and creating goals, and then documenting those goals regularly, and then tattooing them on the patient's arm, and then making sure their primary care doctor knows the goals, and their nephrologist, and their parents, and their moms, and everybody knows the goals. I think that's by far the most important.
Tara, what kind of educational tools or messages do you think would have made a difference for you in your journey?
Oh my. More images that look like me, women, Black women, smaller frame women. I think, for me, it was any, it was shock. You're shocked when you're here, right? And so I think for me, the first image that came to my head was the white gentleman, pot belly, red face. And so for me, even though I knew the symptoms of heart disease, I was still detached from them, because I hadn't grown up seeing anybody that looked like me actually have a heart attack, even in my family. And so here I am, like, in this world by myself, and don't have enough information. So I sought after that information so that I can then give it to my community on a personal level. Like, I brought it all the way down to earth. So when I'm having conversations with people, I think for me now, I use a lot of tools. But I have a lot of, I'm in this world too. Everybody's not in this world. And so now I have Amgen's information. I have this person, the doctor's information that they're telling me to take to the community. I have digital tools. So I think it's like you have to have a multiple set of tools, because you're missing somebody here or you're missing somebody there. So of course the internet, social media, trusted doctors on social media it's where it's at. We like it quick, we like it fast, but that's kind of hard to keep up to date. So I think doctors should get more involved in social media because that's where the community is, a lot of them. And doctors should get outside of the wall of the clinic and get out into the community. And so I would like to see have ran into a doctor on the street that I felt was approachable out in my community doing the work or coming to my school and having those conversations with me. And so I would have liked to see those type of tools, but I guess those are a little different.
No, those are the great tips. Dr. Collins, we talked a little bit about the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology guidelines. What other tools or resources do you find particularly useful in clinical care?
So those two are big, robust websites with a ton of information that you can just sort of dive into and continue to learn. And I just sort of, continue to further that conversation every time I see my patients. But the Association of Black Cardiologists has a big library of downloadable digital tools that are like PDFs that are also great. And, the National Lipid Association, you're pretty well covered. Family Heart. All of these are websites that you can just send. The way I describe it is just you're starting to learn a language, because Tara's right. Social media is fast and it's sound bites and it's great, but there's a lot of fraught information on TikTok. Once you start delving into the supplements and furthering these conversations and with one pagers highlighting website, here's what you need to know. These robust databases that keep up to date, because the last thing we want to be doing is sort of hammering different guidelines or different goals or different messages. We have to have one sort of common message, and it shouldn't be in one place because those, all this information is received in different ways by different patients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tara, what practical steps do you think we could do to make cholesterol conversations more impactful?
Dr. Collins mentioned high-fiving her patients and getting excited with them when they reach their goals. I think we can really learn from Dr. Collins' story that that's what it should be. Like when we reach a goal, we want to see that at the primary care level, or when we go to our cardiovascular doctor and they say, "Oh, your LDL, your bad cholesterol is now down 1 point, 10 points." We want to ring the bell like they do with breast cancer. We want to celebrate, these milestones. Yes, why not celebrate that? So, and having that moment with our doctor makes it a fun experience versus this doom all the time. So, I think it would be great for doctors to add some kind of celebratory process when their patient or community member reaches their goal.
I think that's great. I think having targets and having some sort of bell and way to celebrate reaching those targets would be fantastic.
Yeah, no more focus on the non-compliance. We're going to focus on those who are compliance. That's how we have to do in education. I'm a school counselor. We cannot always focus on the students that are not behaving. We have to also show our students who are behaving attention as well. So same kind of thought process.
Great advice. Thank you. This has been a fantastic conversation. Dr. Collins, why do you think clinicians should share this documentary? Coming back to kind of you guys being the stars in this show, why should they share this with their patients?
I think I have never seen a more succinct and relatable conveyance of the LDL journey and how it impacts cardiovascular disease, how it impacts heart attacks and strokes. The storytellers are brilliant at expressing what they went through, the unexpected nature of it, and the way that throughput in the conversation was really resonated in the film, I think is so impactful. And so hearing those stories from the patient's perspective, and in that convening, relating that to one number is everything.
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a big part of this story. It's a big part of what we do preventing heart attacks and strokes is hammering down that one number. So I think this film does a great job in 30 minutes of creating a relatable story with clear messaging about the importance of LDLC.
Exactly. LDLC, know that number, right? Tara, why do you think patients should watch this documentary?
I think about everybody represented at that table. Myself, Havel, Fiona, Ponciana, and Barry, of course. um, each one of us was raw, transparent, and we became a community. And so, with that being said, that to me comes across the film to make it resonate with anybody that's watching it. Doctors are also patients, can become patients really quickly. The office staff, the Joe Blow on the street, anybody could relate to this film. And so I think they should watch it before they become a patient. And I hope they watch it after a patient, and because it filled in all of those stories and all those questions that many might have. Like Dr. Collins said, it was one number. We're talking about one number. And in order to, when you hear bad cholesterol, that means, okay, wait a minute, there's maybe good cholesterol. Or when you hear good cholesterol, that might means I need to know what my bad cholesterol is. And so I'm glad that we got to sit down and reach patients, because we are patients. So from one patient to another, they should watch the film.
I completely agree. I think I sent it to my family. I think everyone should share it with their communities. So thank you both so much for joining us in this important discussion. What we've heard today is really a powerful reminder that heart attacks, even in women, rarely happen without warning, or often those warning signs can go unnoticed, unaddressed, without the right awareness, diagnosis, treatment. And really, there's a lot of lack of coordination and conversations about these risk factors. And we all have a role that we can play in changing that. As clinicians, one simple yet impactful step that you could take today is to share the Making of a Heart Attack documentary with your patients, as well as your colleagues, your clinic staff, your community. It's accessible, it's emotional, it's an educational tool. It can really help spark critical conversations around cardiovascular risk, particularly the role of LDL-C, and empower people, especially those with cardiovascular disease, to take action before a crisis occurs. You'll find the documentary and related resources linked alongside this webcast on the Women as One website, and we encourage you to integrate them into your clinical practice, your outreach, and care coordination. Together, we can help prevent the next heart attack by seeing risks more clearly and addressing it more collaboratively. Thank you again, Tara and Dr. Collins. Really thank you for taking the time to be with us and share your experience and help us all learn more about LDL-C. Take care. Have a great day.